Hey guys, what's going on? Inception here and welcome to another video today. Today, I'm going to be showing you guys a video on what type of midfielders you guys are going to use when you make your meta squads for Futchamps. And I'm going to be basically listing different types of players and why each one of these players are players that I either like or dislike or may like depending on if I try them out in game and whether or not I would like them when I do try them out. So I hope you guys enjoy this video today. It's going to be a long one. I'm very descriptive with every single player that I describe because I know people are really into that kind of stuff. So I hope you guys do enjoy it. We're going to get this started with the midfielders, okay? So I'm going to tell you guys why some of the midfielders, I like them and why I don't like some of them, okay? Some of them, it's always about like comparisons, right? Sometimes you'll use one player and you'll use another player and you do this like comparison thing where it's like, oh, but he's not as good as that player. This is again the mentality that you need to have if you're thinking meta, right? If you're thinking this meta mentality, that's the way you need to think. If you want to have fun with regular players that aren't meta like Isco and Iniesta and those types of players, you can do that to have fun, right? But they're not ideal to have in those positions because if you think of FIFA in a meta sense, those positions, they become detriments to the squad. That's the place that people will exploit because people like Isco and Iniesta, they won't have that physical presence or defensive stats at all to defend against people when they're attacking them. But they'll be super attacking oriented and their attacking stats won't even be worth it in terms of the risk without having that defensive aspect. So I'll explain to you guys why I like and dislike certain players. This is going to be like the midfield edition. I'll probably do like a forward edition and a defender edition later on, probably today. We'll see. So let's get started with Pogba, right? The reason why people keep suggesting Pogba to me because the team that I use Eric Bailly and Valencia in the squad, right? And as you guys know, with the 4-3-2-1, you use Eric Bailly, Valencia, and Herrera or Mkhitaryan to get the triple links. The thing about FIFA is that the meta revolves around the triple links that you can get with a 4-3-2-1 most of the times. Some people use like the 4-5-1 or the 4-3-3 just to get that chemistry and then switch in game. But for a team like this, right, where people suggest Pogba, where they want me to use Pogba, Bailly, and Valencia, I don't like Pogba. Reason why I don't like Pogba is because his pace doesn't contradict well with his defending stats. Because he's high medium, right? He's high attacking stats and he's medium defensive stats. He will push up a lot. Even if you have stay back while attacking on him, he will still push up because his work rates will contradict the instructions, which will also contradict these tactics that you have set to your team. Like if you have high passing on your team, your players will make more riskier runs. So even if you tell them to stay back while attacking, a player like Pogba will still push up. The problem with him pushing up is that he has no aspect about him of coming back to defend, right? Because his pace is super low, right? He has 72 acceleration with 76 sprint speed. You can boost his pace by giving him a hunter or a shadow, but it doesn't seem relevant enough in game, right? So for a player like Pogba, the good thing about him is that he's 6'3". So, he'll win some of the 50-50s in the air because being 6'3" with 91 strength and 85 jumping, he'll win the ball, he'll win the 50-50s in the air. But I wouldn't use him in his team as a midfielder, like as a right center mid or a left center mid, because he doesn't have any defensive capabilities, right? His defensive capabilities are incredibly low and his pace is incredibly low. So if he pushes up and he doesn't have this urgency to push back, that's a detriment to the squad because there's an opening there that someone could just exploit because you have a shitty player there. I wouldn't say that Pogba is incredibly shitty because pro players use this card and they like him. I've seen some pro players use him as a CDM. I would never do that. I would never use him as a CDM. A CDM that has no defensive abilities would never work for me. Would he work as a center mid? He would, but you have to be kind of careful. His informed versions of his card are much better, right? I've tried them. They're better, but they're still not there for me to want to use them in his club. Tolisso. Tolisso is a suggestion that people usually use because you have the triple links of Boateng, Alaba, and then there's Vidal, right? I personally don't like Vidal. We'll get into that later. The Tolisso situation, he can be very good. right? This is the type of card that you have to try in the game. Certain cards you can kind of realize that they're not going to be very good for you before you even try them, like before you waste the money and then lose money off of taxes, right? A card like Tolisso, when you look at his in-game stats, everything balances out really nicely on the card, right? Because he's 5'11 with 84 physical, so that already contradicts each other really nicely, right? 84 physical, but it's because he has 81 strength, 81 aggression, and 90 jumping with 86 heading accuracy. So if you're thinking about the concept of winning 50-50s in the air, this guy's going to do it for you. 50-50s in the air when they do a goal kick or you cross the ball, or crossing the ball in attack or defending, are very important. It makes you win and lose games, right? When you have a midfielder that is small and doesn't have good jumping, they're just never going to win those 50-50s in the air. And the guy will be able to attack better against you because you're lacking of that. Your team is lacking of that physical presence. So in that aspect, Tolisso is very good. All those stats contradict each other really well. The reason why I wouldn't want to use this card in my team is because the way that my playstyle is set up, right, is that I use a 4-1-2-2, and I wouldn't use this card as a CDM because he's high attacking work rates with medium defensive work rates, right? His defending stats are decent. You could give him Shadow. You can only use this card if your way of playing FIFA is more aggressive. Nowadays in FIFA, if you put stay back while attacking on him, he will stay back while attacking, depending on the tactics that you use, but they do it more often nowadays than they used to do back in the day, right? But the reason why I wouldn't use this card is because I would want to use him as a center mid. He wouldn't be a good center mid, depending on the situation, because if he gets himself into a position where he has to use his left foot, and he has 3-star weak foot, he won't be able to take that really strong driven shot across goal, because sometimes what happens in game is that the center mids, they switch with each other. Sometimes it depends on the situation, right? In a situation with Tolisso, I get myself into a lot of situations where I use Tolisso's left foot to score goals, right? You don't want to have that linear aspect about the player that because he has a 3-star weak foot, he won't be able to score those low driven shots across goal. Because when you're facing good players, having a linear player like Tolisso will be a detriment to your squad because you won't be able to play to your full potential, not being able to get into a box and then shoot with his left foot. So in that aspect, he's lacking, but the card is definitely worth trying out because sometimes, right, the stats of a player or the lack of things that a player has, it doesn't matter because other things contradict that, right? I'm going to use the word contradict a lot. If you have a player like Tolisso as a center mid on the right side, having 78 finishing with 76 composure isn't ideal, but it's not terrible, right? So if you give him a hunter or a shadow card, the card will play significantly better. He has decent long shots, which is very important if someone is sitting back a lot, right? And you need someone that has good long shots in order for you to try to score a goal back, right? Especially with that tutorial that I recently showed where I did a drag back twice and then shoot it right away. He'll be good at doing that with his right foot because his long shots are really good with shot power, right? So this card is something that you have to try out. This isn't the type of card that you judge before you buy, but you can tell that he might be shit because of certain aspects, right? The lack of pace, you're going to have to give him a shadow or a hunter, right? The acceleration being 81 is very good because if you think of him more as a defensive style player, having that acceleration being 81 is very good for rotating left and right. So the card looks good. It's a card you have to try out in the game. Herrera, this card used to piss me off so much, okay? This card pissed me off so much because of comparisons, right? If you use this card, he will basically be very similar to the aspects like Pogba, but he'll be more prone to coming back because of the high defensive work rates. It's amazing that he's 6 foot, right? But he doesn't have jumping, right? And he doesn't have strength to outbody someone to win the ball in the air. So he still won't win the ball that often in the air, but being 6 foot is very nice to have. The 4-star weak foot is awesome to have as well, right? But the thing is that when he's attacking, right, the best card to use on a card like this, again, is Shadow or Hunter. So if you don't put Shadow on this card, his sprint speed will still be kind of slow. It's very noticeable in game if you actually use him with full chemistry. His sprint speed will still be very slow. but his finishing will be better with the composure. So if he gets inside the box, he will actually take some decent shots because 84 composure will help that a lot, because if someone is putting pressure on the player, he'll be decent with finishing because he has a 4-star weak foot while also being 6 foot. So he'll be able to outbody someone only because of the 6 foot aspect, but not because of the strength aspect, because of the aggression aspect, right? So putting a hunter card on him would definitely be ideal if you're a more attacking style player. 86 interceptions is decent, but you'll be lacking a little bit in the defensive department in terms of standing tackle and sliding tackle because you're not going to be upgrading it with a shadow card. So this card, if you're starting off FIFA, you either use a card like this or you use a card with like Mkhitaryan that has the pace but doesn't have defensive stats, right? And we'll get to that in a bit. This card's pace is what pissed me off the most. I used to play this card on full chemistry, shadow card with pace and defending, and hunter card with pace and shooting, but he would still feel slow. But the aggression is very noticeable. Aggression with the upgrade with the pace is very noticeable, but it's not good enough, right? So I would definitely prefer to use someone like even a regular Goretzka over this card. Nainggolan's an interesting one. So Nainggolan is considered a meta player. He's considered a meta player because he's high work rates and he has good all-around stats. The reason why I don't like Nainggolan that much in this game is because he barely ever wins 50-50s in the air, and the attacking aspect about himself is decent, but it's not amazing. The thing about this card, though, is that if you need to pop in some long shots because someone is being super defensive oriented, they have their back four like really far back, he'll be able to take those really good long shots. Again, with that shooting mechanic where you do a drag back twice and then shoot right away, he'll be really good at doing that, right? You can give this card a hunter because his defensive stats are already pretty decent. 86 interceptions with 86 stand tackle and slide tackles are very good. So if he gets inside of the box and he's on the right side, he will take good shots. So this guy is close to the meta of what you want, because even defending wise, you don't even need to touch his physical, because if he's running with a hunter, he'll have the acceleration stat boost and the sprint speed stat boost. With 88 aggression and 76 strength, he'll be able to outbody really good players. The problem that I have with him, right, is that he has a 3-star weak foot and he won't win that many 50-50s in the air. Attacking aspect wise, I have had times where I was on his left foot because, again, the center mids, they always move with each other, right? I was on his left foot and it was too linear for me to move with him because he has a left foot weak foot. So it's situational, right? He's a meta player in terms of the price that you're paying for because he's good at everything but the shooting with the left foot and the 50-50s in the air. But he's definitely ideal. And the reason why Nainggolan is a good player is because if you use Nainggolan, right, you can have this chemistry style of using a Nainggolan, Manolas, and a Florenzi. That's a good triple link for a meta squad, right? So he would definitely be ideal. People ask me why I don't like De Bruyne in this game. Even if you give me a team of the group stage card, I don't like De Bruyne in this game. And again, guys, this is all very opinionated, right? I've seen players use cards like a De Bruyne, unless it's the team of the year. A team of the year is a different story. But unless it's this card, I don't like this card. Again, I don't like this card because he has no defensive stats. Because my playstyle with my center mids is more defensive oriented, more than it is attacking oriented, I would never use this card. This card is beautiful if you're an attacking oriented player and you don't mind the aspect of De Bruyne not being that great at defending, right? You'll have that aspect on the right side or the left side because you can use him on the left side because he's a 4-star weak foot with 84 finishing and 85 composure, which is incredible, and he has good long shots. So if you're an aggressive type player where you pop in random long shots, and you need a little bit of physical. He has 74 strength, but his body shape in game is a little bit stockish, and that stockish body shape is what makes him really good. If you guys noticed, most icons in the game are stockish players. The reason why they make them stockish is to make them the best cards in the game. Like if you've seen Ronaldinho and stuff, those guys are stockish because it makes them amazing. When they have physical stats and they're big dudes in game, it makes the card really good. I wouldn't use this card simply because of the defensive aspect. He's good at everything else, the 50-50 aspect in the air of him not winning the ball, and like he might win the ball sometimes, but him not winning it consistently would bother me a lot because of the aspect of him not really having any defensive stats. But he would definitely be worth a shot to try out instead of someone like, you know, Mkhitaryan, like I'm currently using, right? He would definitely be worth a shot in terms of the attacking aspect because his acceleration and sprint speed would be boosted by 5 or 10 depending on what Hunter does, and then his shooting would basically be perfect. So again, if you're aggressive, he'll be amazing at shooting and running in behind. Eriksen, I think, is a complete piece of shit in this game. I would never use him as a cam because he's incredibly slow, right? He doesn't... You could put a Hunter on this card and it still wouldn't make a difference in terms of sprint speed because, I don't know, man, he just doesn't work running-wise. Like, he's just not very good at it. Again, opinionated. The only time I would use this card is as a center mid, right? If I use this card as a center mid, again, doesn't have defensive stats, but even on top of not having defensive stats, he has no strength and aggression. So when you're defending with him, he's basically just a pylon there. He won't really be able to do much for you. He's just a pylon. You're just moving with him to block an area, but unless the pass is directly towards you, he won't really do much for you defensively. Would you give this card a Hunter card? And again, if you're more aggressive, would he be good? Yeah, because his shooting would be amazing because he has 90 composure. If you give him Hunter, it'll be a plus 10 finishing boost, I believe, and then, you know, his acceleration and sprint speed would be in the mid 80s, high 80s, which would be very good as well. But as a midfielder, he would be absolutely trash because his sprint speed is too slow to come back and defend, and he has high attacking work rates with medium defensive work rates. So he will have no urgency to come back and defend. But the 5-star weak foot is definitely a nice touch. But the only card you can really use on this is Hunter. And again, if you're aggressive, he'll be awesome. If not, I wouldn't recommend using him. Fernandinho would be an interesting card to use as a CDM, but it depends on the situation, right? So if you look at his card, he's 5'10", which is a very decent height, right? It's better than having a 5'9". With medium high work rates, that is incredibly ideal to have as a CDM, right? The thing about this card, though, right, is that it's a card similar to Tolisso's. So you would have to try out this card and see if he's good. He'll win some of the 50-50s in the air, and he's the main focal point of the team. That's the thing about trying out Fernandinho in comparison to like a Bakayoko. He is the focal player in the team. So Bakayoko will sometimes win headers in the air because he's a tall guy. He's got physical presence, right? Fernandinho, however, has 76 strength, 73 jumping, while being 5'10". So sometimes he'll win the ball, but sometimes he won't. You want to win the ball most times. When someone does a goal kick, you want to win that 50-50 most of the times because the defenders, they push up slightly when a person does a goal kick. So if you win that 50-50, you've got your 3 attackers up there, and then you'll be able to attack better, right? So again, this is a type of card that you would have to try out. 4-star weak foot is a very nice touch on the card. The finishing being 70 and the composure being 76 is not a big issue because the only time you should ever use this card is if you're using him as a CDM. If you use him as a CDM, you can give him a Hunter card, but it wouldn't necessarily be worth it because he's a CDM. The main aspect of using a CDM in your team is being defensive. So putting a shadow card on him is more ideal to use than putting a Hunter card on him. Because if you put a Hunter card on him, sure, maybe you'll boost his finishing by like 10. I don't know what Hunter does exactly, or I don't know what Hunter. I don't know what Hunter does exactly. It might be 10 finishing. If you give him 80 finishing with 76 composure, it still won't be that great because 76 composure is quite low, right? But it'll still be decent. It won't be terrible, but it won't be great. So I would definitely recommend putting Shadow on him if you use him as a CDM. Another type of card you would have to try out in game and see if he's any better than a player like Bakayoko. Kante is an interesting one. The sole reason why I don't like this card is because of his height, right? Because he looks like an incredible card to have as a CDM. When he's on the ball, he moves quickly. He doesn't feel slow on the ball. Off the ball, he's got some crazy acceleration because if you give him Shadow, it's going to be in the 90s, right? Or it's going to be in the high 80s, low 90s, right? So he'll move like a speed demon. I've played against his team of the year. It literally moves like a speed demon. He's got aggression, which is amazing to have. But the only reason why I don't like this card is strictly because of height. 5'6" is just way too short to have as a CDM. He is never going to win a 50-50 in the air against anyone unless you get lucky in terms of the way he's positioned. That's the only reason why I don't like this card. Is it a card that I would suggest for you to try out? Yeah, because having a player like this that has good acceleration and sprint speed with that aggression is very nice to have, because even though he's really small, if you go body to body against someone, he will try to aggressively get that ball back. Especially with that mechanic that I showed you guys recently, where like if you spam B when you're close to a player, he'll try to push in front of the guy, even if it's like a Team of the Year Ronaldo, right? So it's definitely worth a shot to try out. And he's, again, very opinionated in terms of me not liking him. You have to try him out to see if you like him. Vidal, there's two reasons I didn't like this card. There was two reasons that really pissed me off. His shooting was inconsistent, so he needs to have a hunter. I can't even bother thinking of putting a shadow on him. You need to put a hunter on this card, right? His shooting was very inconsistent. The way he feels on the ball, he just takes way too many heavy touches. I don't like players that take heavy touches, because when they take heavy touches, you're wasting time, right? You waste those 1 or 2 seconds to make that extra touch, to do a better pass, to make the extra touch, to kind of shield the ball better. The pace and the touches that he did were the only things that really pissed me off with the card. Is the card decent? Yeah, it's actually not bad, because he's 5'11" with 82 jumping and 81 heading accuracy, so it's not bad in terms of winning 50-50s in the air. Even though in-game he didn't really win them that often for me, because the taller players will still get it over him, right? But those two aspects are the sole reasons why I didn't like using the card. So I'm definitely going to be using an informed Goretzka over him, solely because of the pace and the slight difference of dribbling, right? This card was also a piece of shit in the game. Didn't like him at all. The reason why I don't like this card is I think I don't like using midfielders that have medium work rates. It just completely feels wrong in your team. Maybe as a CDM, people suggested using him as a CDM. As a CDM, he actually might be decent, because medium works really well for a CDM. But as a center mid, I hated him so much. I only used him in one game, and he just basically felt like a worse version of Vidal because of the dribbling aspect and the attacking aspect. He just didn't feel good at it at all. So, you know, it's situation with Moy. I would try him out as a CDM, because again, 80 jumping isn't terrible. His heading accuracy is awful. I noticed that in one game. He can't hit a ball straight, which is annoying, right? But other than that, the card, it's decent depending on how you're using him. If you're using him as a center mid and you want to be able to attack and defend very smoothly, I wouldn't recommend using him, because the medium work rates, I feel like screw that aspect about him. Goretzka is the card that I'm going to buy recently. And people are asking me why I like Goretzka so much. Goretzka is one of the few players that is completely meta-based, considering the price that you're paying for and considering the fact that he's not an icon, right? So when you look at his stats, his defending stats aren't crazy good, but they're decent enough. And he has 79 composure with 74 finishing. So if I were to use this card, I would either want to use a gladiator on him, because his pace is already really nice. 83 acceleration with 86 sprint speed is already really good, but I preferred him to be faster so that he can push up and come back quicker. So I would definitely recommend using a hunter or a gladiator on this card. Maybe shadow, depending if you want to be more defensive oriented, but he will be really bad at shooting the ball going forward. So that's why I would definitely recommend using a hunter on him to boost his finishing by a little bit, because I think if I use Goretzka in my team, I have David Alaba and Boateng, so he doesn't get full chemistry with that triple link. But if you get like an icon like Laurent Blanc as a CDM, you'll get the full links on him eventually. So he would definitely be the most ideal right center mid. So you use him as a left center mid to start him off, but then in game you would switch to a right center mid, because it's really nice to have a right-footed player on the right side and a left-footed player on the left side, or a 5-star weak-footed player on the left side. So you have a good balance with shooting and passing with both feet. So because he has a 4-star weak foot, it makes him even better, right? So if you put him on the right side and he cuts inside to shoot with his left, he'll be able to do that, especially if you give him a hunter chem style boost. The 88 aggression is beautiful to have while also being 6'2", while also having 83 acceleration and 86 sprint speed. If you give him a Hunter card, he will outbody most players because of that aggression and because of the sprint speed and acceleration boost, right? While also being 6'2". If he's like 5'8" or whatever, it's a little bit different, but because he's 6'2", he'll actually outbody people. Kessie is a new card that recently came out. He's high work rates, right-footed with a 4-star weak foot. So that already is starting off great. High work rates are amazing to have for center mids, right? With this card, his defending stats aren't crazy good. But the thing that makes up for it a little bit is the fact that he has 78 finishing with 80 composure. So it just depends on the situation, right? Let's just say, again, with your center mids, the only cards that you should be using are Hunter, Shadow, and Gladiator. Those are the only 3 cards you should be using for the center mids in terms of the pace, defending, and shooting aspect. Because when a player has 78 passing and 82 dribbling, that's like the typical thing with the midfielders. There is a high chance that this card could be really garbage at dribbling. There's a high chance because of his agility being 73 with 78 balance. There's a very high chance of it. But if you give this card a Shadow and you're more defensive oriented on this in the center mid aspect and you're not really that attacking oriented, this card is really nice to have with Shadow, but it's a card you have to try out because of that low agility and balance. He is a 6-foot player with low agility and balance. That could be annoying, there's a chance. But there are other stats that could contradict the fact that his 6 foot with a bad agility and bad balance, there's other stats that could contradict that. Because he has 85 physical. His 85 physical comes from 86 strength and 78 aggression with 81 jumping while also being 6 foot, right? So because all of those stats contradict each other, he could be incredible as a defensive oriented player as one of your center mids. But attacking wise, he'll be a little bit more inconsistent because he has 78 finishing with 80 composure, which isn't terrible because 80 shot power is very nice as well, right? And his attacking positioning is very good too. So it's definitely a card that I would recommend you trying out. And the thing that's cool about this card is that you can try him out with different players. Like you can put Aurier and Bailly in a team and use Kessie on the right side and then create a Calcio A team with your midfield and attackers because of the Ivory Coast links, right? So you could definitely do some cool things with that card. We got a couple more cards here. Again, the Bakayoko aspect and why everybody uses him. He is the best CDM in the game in terms of someone that is affordable. I'm pretty sure this card costs nothing. Like I'm almost certain this is his World Cup card. That's the World Cup OTW card, I believe. So you don't even need to get this card. You would literally just need to get his regular card, which is the one that I currently use right now in my other squad, which is this one right here. I think they have the same stats because he hasn't been upgraded yet because the World Cup hasn't started yet. So in terms of Bakayoko, right, he is really good defensively. The only problems that this card has is that he's medium work rates. Medium work rates are really annoying to have for a CDM. They're not terrible, but they're not ideal, right? Defensively, he's very good. If you give him a Shadow, his acceleration and sprint speed will be a little bit higher. It's noticeable that he's a slow player, even with the 73 pace, but the boost with the Shadow will definitely help a little bit. But you will have absolutely zero attacking options with him. The reason why this player can win the ball in the air a lot of the times is because he is 6'1" with 82 strength and 78 jumping. So he'll actually win those 50-50s in the air depending on the players he's facing. If you're facing like icons, you know, they're going to be very tough to battle against to win those 50-50s. But if you're facing guys who have like Willian, for instance, like me, I'm using him as a cam, or Gabriel Jesus, you know, you'll just win the ball all the time over those two players, right? Depending on the positioning of the player. So that's why he's the most ideal CDM, because the main aspect of your CDM is to defend, and that's what he does really well. But the medium work rates is incredibly annoying, and it's very noticeable. If you had someone that has, if Bakayoko had medium high work rates, I would love him way more, because I don't like when he attacks sometimes because of the medium concept. Other players here, Dele Alli. I think the Dele Alli one is simply put, doesn't have any defending stats. If you want to be aggressive and attack, he'll be amazing. His finishing will be very good. His long shots will be better because the only card that you should be putting on this card is a Hunter card. So if you give him Hunter, his shooting will be incredible. And he'll have a good physical concept in the midfield, right? Because Dele Alli is 6'2", right? While also having 73 strength, 87 aggression, and 92 stamina. So he'll make a very good center mid, but he won't really do much for you defensively. You can give him a shadow card because the things like interceptions and a little bit of a boost on his standing tackle will be noticeable on his card, especially the interceptions aspect, because if you give him a shadow, I don't remember exactly what it does, if it's a +5 or a +10, but if you give him shadow, him being, let me go back to him here. Him being 6'2" with at least 80 interceptions if they boost it by 10 will definitely help the card be better in terms of defensive aspect. Hamza card, same exact thing as the Dele Alli. His defensive stats are low, but he has good interceptions and good standing tackles. So if you give him a shadow card, he will play better in those concepts. And shooting-wise, he'll be pretty decent because he has 84 composure with 78 finishing, because those two contradict each other. He would actually be a really fun center mid to try out because he's a tall player in the midfield with a 5-star weak foot. You don't necessarily need the skill moves too much for your center mids. It's nice to have sometimes, but you don't really need it. The 5-star weak foot is very nice to have. If you don't care about the fact that his defensive stats aren't that great, if you give this card a hunter card, he'll be really good at shooting the ball and getting in behind the play, because his attacking positioning being 88 is really, really nice. But coming back and defend, don't expect him too much to do that, because he'll play incredibly similar to a Paul Pogba, right? Because he's got low pace and no defensive stats, while also being high attacking work rates with medium defensive work rates. So you got to be careful with a card like that as well. Allan is, again, a card you need to try out in-game, because the main focal point of your team, again, is a CDM. I would never recommend using him as a right center mid or a left center mid, but if you give him a shadow card, there is a high chance that he'll be an absolute monster there. The only problem with this card is that he has 72 jumping while also being 5'9". The medium high work rates saves the card a little bit more, but the 5'9" height with the low jumping means that he will not win. He won't win most of the balls in the air, which will be like a problem here and there, right? But is he a CDM that you can try out? For sure, because acceleration being at 82 while also giving him a shadow boost while having good defensive stats and even better acceleration, it'll definitely be a card that's worth trying, especially since he's the only good CDM Calcio A player, because everybody else pretty much sucks because of work rates or they don't have enough defensive stats and all that kind of stuff, right? So he would definitely be ideal to try out in that situation. And then we have Saul over here, who is definitely a card you can try out. And, you know, in the Liga Santander, it's very iffy with CDMs right now. Like, the only good card that you can try out is Casemiro, but he's lacking a little bit in the pace. So that's a little bit of a downfall of his card. But Saul actually looks like a card that can turn out to be really good, right? And this is a card, again, that you either give Hunter to or Shadow to. I would actually recommend trying him out with a Hunter card, because then his finishing will be better because he already has good composure, and you'll make his long shots even better. So because he's medium high work rates with a 4-star weak foot, it would definitely be worth trying out this card with a Hunter, simply because of the fact that his finishing will be very good, and defensively, he's already a pretty decent player with good composure, right? So it would definitely be worth trying him out. You either try him out with Shadow or Hunter. The physical aspect being 79 strength is good. The 68 aggression part is a little bit lackluster for a CDM in order for him to kind of push back with aggression in order for him to get the ball back. So I think that's all the center mids here in terms of why I like and dislike certain players. The current squad that I use right now is this team right here, if I can get it, which is this one right here. And I'll explain to you guys certain concepts of why I don't like this team right now in terms of like the Futchamps concept and all that. So the back four is the most meta that I can possibly think of. I honestly don't mind my back four at all, because right now, if I were to use this team with this back four, it's awesome, right? Because they're really meta, right? Like Valencia with high work rates, beautiful. Bai is just an incredible center back. I would consider him on the levels of icons. Same ththing with Boateng. Alaba is incredible. When you give Alaba a shadow card, he actually feels really good pushing forward, right? The problems with this team. Mkhitaryan is a big one. No defensive capabilities. His physical capabilities are completely irrelevant, being 70, because his strength and aggression is low. So he will not do anything defensively for you, but he has the sprint speed and the acceleration to come back and defend. But the defending is completely down to you and how you position your player. So he won't do it for you because he's awful at defending, but attacking wise, he's a very nice player to have. Having 79 composure while putting a hunter card on him. I play him right now on, I believe, 7 chemistry, which is not the best. I prefer to have him on 10 so he can have better finishing. But it's really nice to have a card that I can push off to the left center mid with a 5-star weak foot and 4-star skill moves while also being high. So he doesn't have any defensive capabilities whatsoever, but he has the high defensive work rates to push back with the 86 pace while also being 5'10". So it's not terrible, but it's not ideal. If you face people that have the meta players in the midfield, like, you know, the Laurent Blanc, the Patrick Vieira's, he's not going to do anything against them unless you defend really well with him, right? Bakayoko, I've already told you guys, it's the work rates and the lack of attacking presence, because at the end of the day, your CDM will have to try to bang in a long shot, or he'll push in eventually, and him having no shooting capabilities or attacking capabilities is very annoying. Goretzka, again, one of the few players that's actually meta-oriented as a center mid in terms of having everything being good all around. The top 3, honestly, it's so incredibly hard for me to think of a better top 3. And we'll get into this with another video in terms of attacking players. Martial, very good. Martial is a very good player, but his dribbling is sometimes sluggish at times. So I would like that aspect to be better about him. His composure is low, so his finishing is inconsistent at times, but he's very good because he has physical capabilities, because he has 76 strength, right? With 80 jumping while also being 5'11". It's very nice to have a player like that who's also 4-star. Gabriel Jesus, this card is awesome. My only problem with him, which is the biggest problem, is he lacks in physical. He's absolutely garbage at outbodying people. So if you come up against center backs that are icons, or even Bailly and Boateng, you have to be very intricate with the way he moves with the ball. So it'd be preferable to have a player that's more physical up there, but it's very, very hard to do right now. Willian, I use him as a cam. Again, all good around, good all-round stats. High work rates is very nice to have as a cam coming back and going forward, because if you have him on stay forward, but he has high defensive work rates, he will still push back sometimes, but he'll be up there more often because of the instruction of stay forward. So that's why I use these guys in my team. That's pretty much it for the video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys did enjoy it. I'll see you guys later. Peace.